I think I have a new resident here. Let's see here if I can do this without getting. There he is. Garter snake. Gardener snake, as some people call him. Hey, it's Greg Ott here with MaritimeGardening.com. I thought I'd do a video today about mitigating the kinds of failures that just tend to occur in a garden over the course of a season. I've been gardening for quite some time, and every year something goes wrong. And there's a number of things you can do, but you can replant, and you can also sort of anticipate the failure and have a plan in mind, a plan B. To deal with that, to use that space in some way that's productive. So I'm just going to show you a couple spots in my garden where that's happened. I've been away. I went on vacation with my family. I was away for about 11 days. And in certain areas of my garden, it was sort of a critical stage where things were not of a size where they take care of themselves. In a heavy mulch system like this, a lot of your plants really do take care of themselves. But certain kinds of plants need to be a certain size before they can do that. When they're small and young, they do need a little bit of hand holding until they get, maybe 5 or 6 inches high. Certain tender things that pests really like, tend to need a little hand holding when they're young. So I lost a couple things over the last 11 days, and it's getting around the middle of July now, so I'm running out of season. But there's still stuff you can do. So come along and have a look. Alright, so here's a garden where I planted beans, and I've got two different kinds of beans. I got a row down the middle of pole beans, and then perpendicular to that I've got rows of bush beans. And as you can see, there's a little area here. This one's been hit pretty hard by something, but it's still alive. But these have been wiped out. And whether these grew or not, I don't know. I mean, they put these in the ground, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and they should be up by now. So, I don't know what happened. But they didn't germinate. I mean, there's a lot of ants in the soil, but ants really don't do anything. So I doubt that's the problem. That guy doesn't belong. And I had some planted here, and I don't know what's happened. Oh, there we go. There's a telltale. So there's one that grew. Right, it grew, but it's been nipped off. Probably slug damage, I would guess. Anyway, it's middle of July, but it's not too late to replant a bush bean. There's enough. I've still got a good 2 months worth of heat for these to germinate and grow, and this one seems to have just died for some reason. Kind of strange. So I've got some beans here that were graciously provided by my sponsor, Vessi Seeds. I've got, these are Aldrin early green beans. I got another one called Maxabelle French Fillet, green French fillet. I'm going to go with the Aldrin because if they're early, it means they're going to grow fast, and I'm running out of time here, right? It'll be October before you know it, and nothing will, the frost will come. So I'm just going to plug a few of those in. I space these about 3 inches apart to plant. So all I got to do, plant beans. Look, that one's been nipped off too. What I'm going to do when I plant these today is I'm going to put a little slug bait around them, so that whatever's been coming around and taking these things out, it's probably still around somewhere. There's one right there. I'll show you that. This one's dead, but anyway, this is a tiny little snail. I get a lot of these in my garden. And when the plants are young, these things can do a lot of damage. This shell's empty, but anyways, these tiny snails. I don't know what they're called. I call them soft shell snails because they have soft shells, like the soft shell crab. And that's good. A little bit over there. Can't remember if I planted here or not. Starting to. Can't remember. Replant. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you don't remember, just plant them anyway. That's done. One, 2, 3, 4. People always ask me, do you get weeds from using hay? And I can tell you, there's millions of weed seeds in with this hay. I can see them. And some of them do turn into weeds, but for the most part, we don't get much. What I get, if anything, is I get this god-awful Timothy stuff. But I don't get a lot, and I just pull it and put it on top, and it becomes mulch. And because you got soft soil, things tend to come out, roots and all. Timothy's a bit of an exception, but usually I can get. You pull slowly. I got the roots out on that one. Okay. You get a little bit of Timothy with hay as a root, but there's not much weeding. I don't spend much time weeding at all, if any. I'll pull a couple weeds every time I come in the garden to collect some food, and that's about it. Anyway, that's all I'm going to do with those. I got a bit of water here. Hit them with that. Beans they don't like to be too wet, and they like a lot of heat. And if you were listening to my podcast with Robert Pavlis, the notion of soaking your beans before you plant them doesn't do any good at all. Put that myth to rest. So don't bother with that. It's easier to do it this way, and it actually increases the germination rate by just sticking them in like this. So doing it the easy way is the best way, sounds good to me. Okay, so that's dealt with. Now here's another part of my garden. This is a garlic garden, and for whatever reason, I don't know if I tried a different variety or some, I can't remember what I did last fall, but the garlic in this end of the garden just didn't really come in. Or they looked funny to me, so I just pulled them. You know, I never want to get some sort of garlic disease in my soil. So if my garlic look weird in any way, I just pull them out and remove them right away. It rarely happens, but in this case, yeah. So I planted something here. I can't remember what, because I don't believe I planted onions, and I don't believe I did plant some of this borage. But these onions, they're going to seed. Really not much use. I didn't plant these. They probably just left from last year. So I mean, I can eat the greens tonight or something like that, but really they're not doing much good here. So I can't remember what I planted here, but it doesn't matter. It has failed, except for this borage, which aside from having a pretty flower, I'm not too crazy about it as a food. I always plant it because I just like the blue of the flowers, but I'm not crazy about it as a food item. The leaves taste like cucumbers, but I'd rather eat cucumbers, to tell you the truth. They have a strange thorny thistle-like texture, which doesn't really feel good in the mouth. But they do have really pretty flowers. So what am I going to do with this space? Well, one thing I always do in my garden is I always plant more of everything than I can possibly grow. Or to put it another way, I always overplant. So I always have to thin things out. And when I'm thinning, I always leave a few things around in reserve, especially things I like to eat that I really can't have too much of. Things that I'll preserve and so on. So I've always got some extra plants that need to be moved and put in a place like this. Today's not a good day to move things because it's going to be hot and sunny all day today. I think it's a high of 26 or something like that. So it's less than ideal, but it's supposed to rain tomorrow. So I'm going to move some plants tonight, right? Because the evening's a good time to move plants because there's no sun and it's cool. You can give them a good watering and they get a chance to, acclimatize overnight. But also if it's going to rain the next day, then there won't be as much light. It'll be a bit cooler, and they're going to be getting constant moisture, so the roots can, you know, adjust and adapt to the situation. Anyway, I'm going to move one plant here just for your viewing pleasure, and I'll just baby it a bit today. Maybe I'll cover it with something. I'll show you a kind of trick you can do if you got to move. You know, if you're like me, I got a day off today, but usually I got a 9-to-5 job, and the best time to work in the garden is right around now or before, because I've got, if you've been watching my videos, an insane, I've always got some sort of pesky fly in my garden, and this time of year, July, the month of July, it's the worst of all the flies, the horse fly. They, like, you know, with mosquitoes and black flies, they're a pain, but you can sort of deal with them. The horse fly, they just don't go away. And I mean, people are going to give me solutions like, oh, just put some duct tape on the back of your hat. You got 20 horse flies and maybe 20 deer flies swarming around your head. None of that stuff does anything. Okay, so if you got a solution for having 40 horse flies that want to eat you swarming around your head, I'd love to hear that solution. But if you're telling me to put duct tape on the back of my hat, please don't waste my time. Okay, because it kills like 2 or 3 or something. They're still whirring around. If you coexist with these kinds of flies all of the time, their mere presence is just agitating. Like because they bite you, and they bite you hard. I mean, they take a piece of you out. So just hearing them, it literally increases anxiety. You can't relax. I love being in my garden because I find it relaxing. If you can just listen to the sounds. There's birds singing everywhere, right? All these nice pretty birds. Actually, there's a particular bird, it's just stopped singing, so I know the horseflies will be here soon. There's a particular bird that has a particular song. When that song, it's always sunrise, dawn, you know, morning song, and it stops making that song around the time that black flies show up, and it stops making that song around the time that horseflies show up. And it was singing when I came out here and set up my camera gear, and now it has stopped. So I know the horseflies are coming around soon. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to plant something here. I'll show you a trick for planting stuff. I like to be in my garden in the morning so there's no flies. So I'm going to show you a trick for planting stuff in the morning when you know it's going to be a hot day, and a way to give that plant a little break. I'm sure most of you already know this trick, but for those who don't, stay tuned. All right. You look right here, and I have an overabundance of tomato plants. They're planted too closely together. I sowed these seeds from a single pack of dollar store. I think they're beefsteaks, and they're coming in pretty good. But there's like one every 4 inches or something like that, and that's about how closely I sowed them. I just sowed these seeds direct. I had this roof on, and they're a good size. So I mean, that worked. But they are too close. But I mean, I spaced them in a way that so I could remove them without messing them up too badly, right? So I want to change their spacing to have maybe one every foot, or maybe even less than that. So I'll leave this guy here, but here's a smaller one. Let me show you how I pulled this out. All right, so I'm trying to keep my head out of the way. All I really do, instead of using tools or anything, is I just, this is heavily mulched, I'm moving the mulch aside so I can get at the plant, but I just feel along with my finger which direction the root goes, and then I just grab the plant like a giant pulling a tree out of the ground, right? Because from the plant's point of view, you are a giant. Now I removed a couple of these lower ones. Right, so this guy's not happy with what I've done to him, but oh well. I would say this space can support about 2 tomato plants. So it's just, I like to do this one at a time. I don't like to have these things out of the ground any longer than I have to. And you notice I'm doing everything with my hands because my soil's soft, because I don't till my garden. I don't turn the soil over. Just makes everything easier. I've done lots of videos on that. I just always like to hammer in on that point. Alright, so that guy's good. Move that mulch around. I'll give him a good watering in a minute. Let's go get another one. There we go. No problem planting these close to the rocks. They love the rocks. There doesn't seem to get in the way of anything happening. Rocks, if anything, they benefit. I don't know what that is. Some sort of ugly looking dangerous thing. This one here, I really messed up the roots a bit. Moving the lower leaves, because it's never good to have your lower leaves in contact with the soil. You run risks of problems. Move this stuff around. There, that's sorted. A bit of water. There, so I turned my problem into a solution in a sense, because I needed to thin these tomatoes anyway, and there was nothing happening in the space. And also, from what I've read, put any stock in companion gardening, I think half it's just the notion of it is 50% witchcraft. But anyway, tomatoes and garlic get along just fine, so they'll get along just great. Alright, so I got something here to deal with the sun problem. It's just a little piece of spruce tree. Actually, it's a little bit small. I got an area on my property where there's a whole bunch of spruce trees, and they're all growing about a foot apart from one another, so really they have to be thinned. So, I mean, they'll thin themselves in the sense that some will die and some will live, but I just sort of choose the ones that look the best and kill the rest. So, for those of you saying, oh my goodness, you cut down a tree, it's like, yeah, I'm going to cut about, next cool day we get, I'm probably going to cut about 20 trees, because there's about 30 trees growing in a space half the size of this one garden bed. So maybe only 2 of them have a future, 3, right? So why not just help that along? Anyway, all I'm doing here is putting these spruce boughs around the plant to just, reduce the intensity of the sun. I've shown this before. I know I've picked up a lot of new viewers over recently, so just sort of ham it in like that. I mean, you can use anything. I like spruce more than things with leaves, because the needles stay on, right? If you put a branch with like glossy leaves, like a maple, the leaves will just sort of shrivel up and disappear. It might last a day. Anyway, these work better, right? Put those there, and for something like a tomato, they make a pretty good mulch anyway. They're not going to. I'm anticipating all the comments. Oh, that'll acidify your soil. No, it will not. Here's another space in my garden. I planted carrots here a while ago, and they all just disappeared, and I'm not sure if a little bunny rabbit got in there. Sometimes I got a fence here. It's about the mesh is 2 inches wide by 4 inches high, and little baby bunnies can find their way through, and they can do a lot of damage really quick. I don't know if that's what it was. It could have been slugs. I don't find slugs to be a huge problem with carrots, but you just never know. I wasn't here when it happened, so I can't tell. All I know is that they're not here. They were, and now they're not. And it's the middle of July, and I haven't got much growing season left to deal with. For something to grow to a size where I can make use of it. It's too late to replant carrots, in my opinion. I plant them in April or early May, and I harvest them in November. And I find by November they're of a really good size that I can store them. And I plant them a bit thick, and I thin them as the season goes along. And the ones that stay get to be a good size, and they store well. It's too late for all of that here. It's just I'm not going to get a good yield if I plant carrots here, given that it's the middle of July and the growing season sort of really starts to wind down in late September. So I'm going to put something else here that makes sense. And over here, and I did this well ahead of time, in this garden I've got, you can see over here, 2 rows of lettuce. And they're about 4 or 5 inches high right now, and they're planted very tight, and I always plant lettuce tight like that. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do this right now, but you get the idea, because I've done this sort of thing. It's just not a good time to replant because it's so sunny and hot. But I'm going to pluck some of these out to space them, and I'm going to put some of them here on this edge. Actually, I'm going to put them right next to the wood as far as I can from the beans, so that the beans don't shade them in too much. A little bit of shade's okay with lettuce this time of year because the sun is so hot, and lettuce can handle a little bit of shade. During the hotter months, it's actually kind of good in a way. Slows them down, keeps them from bolting. So that's what I'm going to do there. Not a big deal, right? I don't get as many carrots, but I'll get lots of lettuce, and that'll keep my wife happy. She's the main lettuce eater in the family. I eat lettuce too, but she eats it like every day at work for lunch. So I gotta have a lot of lettuce to keep her happy. Anyway, that's just a few things I'm doing here to deal with the minor setbacks that always happen. You know, it's different when you're gardening for your own food as opposed to running some huge commercial operation. If I had a major failure in a garden in a situation like that, it could cost me some serious money. All it does in this situation, if you're on top of it and if you've sort of planned ahead and you got a plan B and a plan C, is it means that you're either going to get that thing later, you have to reseed like I did with those beans, or you just move something else into that space and get more of something else, right? You're going to get less of one thing and more of something else. That's not bad. How many times in life, when you're out there in the world with the other people, do you get less of one thing and more of something else, right? You can have a garden like that. It's really nice. So I hope that gave you some good ideas, and if at this stage in the growing season, middle of July, you've experienced that, it's not the end of the world, it's not a big deal. And don't sit back and think about it, just do it. Just find something to stick in there and stick something in there and get something growing. Don't waste your space, use your space, get the most you can out of it. So I hope you found that useful, and if you did, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out my podcast, MarytimeGardening.com. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.